Hello, everyone. My name is Ellie Cohen. I'm the Western Regional Director for NAMAD. I want to welcome you to NAMAD's program with Dr. Sheila Nazarian. Thank you for taking the time out of your evening and your busy schedules to join us. I wanted to let you know a little bit about NAMAD, especially for those that are joining our programs for the first time. NAMAD is the largest women's organization in Israel. There are daycare centers there, technological high schools, youth villages for disadvantaged youth, women's centers, shelter from abuse for women, scholarship programs, and much more. Please go on our website, namad.org, to learn more about all the services we provide families in Israel and what we've been doing to help them since October 7th. Also, please follow us on Facebook and Instagram. We will put the links in the chat. Also, for this program, if you have any questions you'd like to ask Dr. Nazarian, please go ahead and put it in the chat. And towards the end of the program, we will get to as many questions as we can. I want to welcome our honored guest, Dr. Sheila Nazarian. Dr. Nazarian is a board-certified plastic surgeon based in Beverly Hills. She is the host of Emmy-nominated Netflix show, Skin Decisions Before and After, where she transforms the lives of many patients, not just physically, but emotionally. She also has her own skincare line called Nazarian Skin, and she has been a keynote speaker to many national and international programs. She has appeared on numerous TV shows, including Fox News, and she is the outspoken advocate for Israel and the Jewish people, with close to 900,000 following on social media. Thank you so much, Dr. Nazarian, for joining us today. It's a true honor. I'd like to welcome you.
Thank you so much for having me. Hi, everybody.
Well, I wanted to start by delving into your journey from Iran to America. I myself, in 1979, fled Iran as well and came to America. My family brought me here for safer, better opportunities, safer for being a Jewish Iranian person and to have the American dream and better opportunities. So please tell us what your journey was.
So I was born in New York. I was born in Long Island on vacation. My mom came over when she was 9 months pregnant. So I'm a citizen, but we were just on vacation. So we went back, and that was 1979. The revolution started then, and obviously they wouldn't let us leave. And basically the Iran-Iraq war started a year later. So I remember bombs were flying into Tehran. Looks very much like, when you see the missiles coming into Israel. Obviously, there's no bomb shelters in Iran, so my mom would say, oh, let's go to the window and watch the fireworks. So sirens would go off in the middle of the night, and we'd go to the windows and watch the fireworks come in. One bomb landed pretty close to our house, and so that was kind of scary and a wake-up call for my parents. And then my father was a pathologist at the Shah's Heart Hospital, and he had saved the eyesight of one of the laboratory techs in the pathology lab. And so he found a parasite in his eye. And so that guy was part of the revolution. He came to my father and said, you saved my eyes. I'm going to save your life. You're on the list and you need to get out. And so my dad basically told the government, I'm going to a medical conference. They made us leave our passports, my mom, my sister, and I. And so they let my dad leave and he went to Vienna and sort of waited there and worked on getting us visas. Meanwhile, my mom took us one day to the bazaar. We got into back of this covered truck. We were kind of in fetal position on the floor of the truck with strangers. And they covered us with burlap sacks and corn. And then in that position took us close to the border of Pakistan. We had a little pit stop. We changed into pickup truck. So it was our luggage, and we were sitting on top of our luggage in the back of a pickup truck. And that's how we kind of went deeper into the desert. We spent one night in the desert, and the border police spotted us at 2 a.m. and started shooting. So we quickly got back into the trucks, and just drove as fast as we could and were able to evade the border police. We stayed in Pakistan for 3 months waiting for visas, finally reunited with my father in Vienna. And we were in Vienna for another 3 months waiting for visas to legally migrate to the US. First, we went to New York and stayed with my grandmother and my aunt there for a little while. And then the winter hit, and then we're like, maybe we like California more. So then we moved in with my aunt. It was a 2-bedroom apartment, 8 of us living in there. My dad would take his bike to the Beverly Hills Public Library to study for his board exam so he can get a job in the US. And, me and my sister were in ESL. We had to learn English. Very nerdy, very tough social transition, I would say. But it just made us study harder and kind of focus on our studies. We were very, very little distractions. And I actually lost my mom when I was 16 to breast cancer. And, my dad was a physician. We were immigrants. So it's kind of like this doctor theme was in my life for a very long time. I really liked building with my hands. I loved art. And I thought I wanted to do orthopedic surgery. And I followed orthopedic surgeons for a while. It was very cookie cutter, wasn't creative enough for me. And so I tried plastic surgery instead and never looked back. So that's sort of the plastic surgery journey. I was an economics major at Columbia University. I like the business and marketing. I think it's very creative as well. I like the psychology of how people choose to spend their money. I think it's very interesting, macroeconomics, microeconomics. And so I ended up going to business school as well in between general surgery and plastic surgery. Had my second child, did business school, and then had my third child during the plastic surgery years at USC. Got out, hung a shingle, very entrepreneurial, started multiple businesses, just, having fun, open to opportunity, and always, kind of had a very strong moral and ethical core value system, still do. And I just want to sleep well at night and do the right thing and help people. And so I think everything that's come after that, even though it's kind of been branching out of plastic surgery, has been led by this very strong moral and ethical core. So everybody always, like, when I go on Fox News, people are like, you're a plastic surgeon. Why are you talking about like anti-Semitism? Why are you talking about politics? Why are you talking about, and I think it all goes together. I think it's very odd that we decide socially and culturally to not discuss politics or not discuss religion or not discuss money. All of this stuff is so important and is going to affect the lives of our children and our legacy moving forward. So I make it a point to talk about all of these things with my children and to never tell them you're going to get canceled if you bring this up, or you should be afraid and walk on eggshells on this topic. I feel like my parents sacrificed so much to bring me to America so I could have freedom of thought and freedom of religion and freedom of my voice. And so if we don't use those things, we're going to lose them. And I'm not going to let America go down like Iran did.
Well, it just goes to show everyone here what a strong person you are, and your values and convictions have taken you all the way from Iran to medical school to now here advocating for Israel, which leads me to my question. What motivated you? You had a great career going, a good family life, especially with the anti-Semitism. I know it's gotten worse now, but when you started, it was still prevalent. And so what made you decide, I'm going to speak up? And when did you do it? And what were your first steps in speaking up?
So I started about 4 years ago, and it was when my oldest daughter, was applying to my high school. And I was like, okay, she's 4 years away from college. If I don't start normalizing Judaism, she's going to get to college and feel like she can't have those conversations in the dorm rooms and in the closet. Sliding stuff under my door. In the dorm rooms. And I remember from college, my favorite thing was those 2 a.m. conversations with someone from a totally different part of the country or a totally different part of the world. And so I just wanted her to be able to go to college and not have to walk on eggshells and hide her Judaism or hide her identity. So I just started with like a hashtag Shabbat Shalom. I was freaking out. As you know, Ellie, in Iran, you don't say you're Jewish. You change your last name to not sound Jewish. You don't put a mezuzah on your door. And I just wanted to normalize Judaism. And because of the Netflix show, I had a very global following. And I said, you know what, maybe some of these people have never met a Jewish person. And so if I come out and they've been following me for this beauty stuff and they trust me for that and they like me for that, if I come out, maybe I can kind of sway them to say, okay, she's Jewish and she's not so bad. And, you know, maybe just get that little
Yes.
influence, lay that seed. So I started off with that. I was freaking out. My heart was palpitating. It was just like Shabbat Shalom. And that went okay. And then about 6 months later is when the May 2021 conflict happened. And I saw my colleagues just, you know, genocide, apartheid, colonialist, all this stuff. And I said, you know, I have more followers than you. I just went from, I say, boobs and Botox to Israel and Jews. And I was posting 8 hours a day for Israel. And my family was like, what are you doing? Take it easy. You know, my friends were like, you know, it's okay. It's not that bad, you know, all of this stuff. And I was like, no, it's bad. You know, it's really, really bad. And I just remember I couldn't stop posting. I was waking up with anxiety for the first time in my life, but it was just, I was in survival mode. I feel like it triggered like Iran for me. And so I just was kind of going crazy. Then things settled down a little bit. And then October 7th happened. And then I think people who were following me were like, oh my God, you know, and they came to me and they were like, when you said it before, we were kind of like, it's not so bad. And then now we get it. And thankfully I'd already gone through the May 2021 threats and people unfollowing me, and all of that for me happened in 2021. So when I started speaking up again after October 7th, kind of full time, it wasn't the first time for me. So I think that I had built that armor already, and I'd already kind of had a practice run where I feel like for a lot of people, you know, like for example, I'll give you an example, Ellie, when BLM was marching in the streets, I was doing lives on my Instagram talking about how this is an anti-Semitic organization. And people were calling me racist. This is literally while they're marching in the streets. I'm like, this is a horrific organization, you know, like you can't be bigoted and then claim to be bigoted against. Like, that's one thing. The Women's March with Linda Sarsour on stage, first speech out of her mouth at the Women's March is anti-Semitic, you know? And so I'm like, this is an anti-Semitic thing. And everybody's like, you know, are you a feminist or not? You know, so
because many Jews did go march and they didn't realize that they're anti-Semitic.
They ignored this stuff. And then when BLM came out and they put the picture of the parachuters as their logo, I was like, I told you, you know? And so a lot of people were so devastated. We marched with you. And I'm like, guys, it was written down in their charter. You just chose not to see it. And so that's what I'm talking about when I said, like, I had that moment. And so I feel like the shock that people felt October 7th, I was like, this is what I've been telling you for 2 years.
So important.
Yeah. So I'll tell you, October 7th, after that, in the activism space, I felt a lot less lonely. I'll put it to you that way.
Yes. Well, I have to tell you, you encouraged a lot of us to speak up. I too was afraid to speak up. I mean, you don't, being from Iran, you don't want that fear in you, but at some point you have to just, even though I've been here many years with Nahmat, I'm advocating for Israel, I'm supporting Israel, an organization that supports Israeli families. I had that fear. So one of the positive things from you speaking out is helping people like me and others to also speak out. But how did the negativity affect you, your career? And part two of that question is, how did you deal with the trolls and the negative comments on your Instagram? Because for someone who wants to go and advocate, what can we do?
So in the 2021, I remember with my first pro-Israel post, I lost 3,000 followers in like 30 minutes. But I just kept going. And there was this thought in my head. I'd heard this like someone talk and they said up until the age of 40, you need an ego in order to succeed. You need to have, you know, push yourself and like need to, you know, prove people wrong. And like, you need to have that ego. And then after 40, it's about letting go of your ego, grounding yourself and giving back. And so that's how I felt about my social media and my business. I was like, I did it. I'm a plastic surgeon. I have my Netflix show. That was always my goal. I have my children, I have my husband, I have a roof over my head, food on the table. I did it. And now it's time to let it all go. Like that's kind of, I thought I was going to lose my business. I thought I was going to lose all my patients, all of this stuff. And actually, I did lose a lot of patients, but I gained a lot of patients too, which I was not expecting. I was expecting to lose it all. Because that's what they tell you. They tell you you're going to get canceled, and they
It's a big
tell you
risk.
like they put this fear in you. But you know, it's that important. I was in survival mode. I really was in survival mode. I was like, I never even lived in Israel. I'm posting 8 hours a day for Israel.
Mhm.
So for me, it was kind of like very just important survival and the future of my, like the world my children were going to live in.
Yes.
So I just kept going. And so I learned from that experience, you can only get canceled if you cancel yourself, meaning if you shut up or if you apologize. Don't apologize. Don't shut up. Keep
Mhm.
going with your convictions. You know you're right. You know you have moral clarity. And then you will attract your tribe. You will
Mhm.
attract people who have the same morals and who have the same moral clarity. And I can't tell you how great that is for mental health, my mental health. You know, I don't have to walk around eggshells in my social circles or in my office. Everyone knows exactly what I think. They're here anyway. Even if they don't agree with me, they're open to hearing my opinion because they respect my thought process. And so again, I can just be myself at all times and know that I don't have to worry about, you know, people coming in or leaving or going, I'm going to lose this or I'm going to lose that, because I already went through that. So like everybody who's
Yes.
left kind of has self-selected themselves to be in my life.
And as you said, you'll have your tribe and you won't feel alone.
It's
So,
not just you don't feel alone, you feel like you're among people who share your core values, and that's awesome. You
mhm.
know, like in the Persian community, you know, like I could send my kid to somebody's, you know, another Persian Jewish person's house because we just came from Iran. We all kind of share the same
Yes,
upbringing style and all of that. And I know they're not going to go there and be like, well, so and so's mom does it this way. We're all doing it the same way.
yes,
So, and
yes.
it's like, you know, the way that we think is important, and it's the way that we think is um in line with our culture and our core values. And that's how I feel with the people that surround me, is they're good, smart people who have critical thinking skills and moral clarity. And I love being around people who I respect mutually. So it's just been the best thing I ever did, even though I was expecting to lose it all. And I'll tell you a story. I was speaking at Christians United for Israel, and Pastor Hagee's daughter Sandy was interviewing me, and I was telling the story. And she said, you know, it reminds me of the story of Abraham. He prayed for a son for hundreds of years. Finally, I think he was like 900 years old. He gets a son, and what does God ask him to do? Sacrifice your son. For
Mhm.
me, that was like plastic surgery, right? My whole life, I just wanted to be a plastic surgeon. Worked so hard. It's so competitive, but so many hours in the hospital, suffered, exhausted, you know, such a sacrifice. And I was willing to give it all away because I had such a strong belief and such strong faith in what I was saying.
Such an interesting
Yeah.
correlation.
And then what did God do with Abraham? At the last minute, he said, no, you get to keep your son, and I'm going to give you Israel. And so for me too, it's like, no, you get
Amazing.
to keep your job, and I'm going to give you so much more. Ellie, you wouldn't have me speaking on your program if I was just a plastic surgeon.
Of course.
I wouldn't be on Fox News if I was just a plastic surgeon.
Yes,
Right. So it's like, I've gotten so much more, and I got to keep my, you know, the plastic surgery that I worked so hard for and I prayed so hard for. So again, every lesson is in the Torah. Every lesson is there. You know, you just have to read it not as just like a fictional text. You have to read them as an instruction book for life. That's
wonderful.
kind of what I've learned from going through all of this hardship and all of these struggles and challenges is, you know, all the answers are there. We just have to read them and see them in a different way.
That's wonderful. I'm thinking, how do you combat anti-Semitism when there's so much misconception going around? And the youth today believe straight out lies about Israel and Judaism. And how do you fight that?
I think we're already doing a great job, honestly. I remember the stats were a lot worse a year ago. Now if you ask the youth, it's gotten a lot better. And I think the crazier the Intifada crew gets, the more patriotic and the more on our side the youth become. So when people are like, did you see what they did? And they beat up this guy and they put swastikas here and they, you know, they said rape is resistance and it's okay and all this stuff. The more they do that, the better it is for our side and our cause. I just saw a video of these people that were dressed up, you know, as the pro-Hamas crowd. And they were like, you know, resistance by any means, and they're on a college campus, right? And people were like, yeah. And so then they started showing them pictures of October 7th, and they're like, yeah, so first, you know, I was in Gaza and I went there and we raped this girl and then we burned this guy, and then they were showing them like the actual photos and they're like, no, 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 we don't agree with that. So it's almost like, you know, the crazier that crowd naturally gets, the better it is for us. And I think that we're seeing a massive shift right now in the
I
youth
hope so.
and in everyone else. So I think it's going to be okay as long as we speak up and we continue to educate. And unfortunately, I think that we were asleep too long and we forgave too much. You know, I don't know if it's we hold everything to the standard of the Holocaust. We're like, oh, they painted a swastika, it's not so bad, you know, or oh, they beat up that visibly Orthodox Jew, it's okay, he's okay. Whereas, you know, other minority groups, when their minority group gets beat up, they'll go out into the streets and protest and like raise
Yes.
hell, and it's in every national news. But for some reason, we, the Jews, don't make so much of a fuss. We're like, oh, if we stay quiet or if we don't make so much of a fuss, maybe it'll die down and go away. That's never worked out for us. We need to
Yes.
follow the playbook of every other civil rights movement and make as big of a fuss and protest as much and sue and get media. We have to say, no, this is not okay. Because if we don't advocate on our own behalf, out of fear or out of thinking it's gonna, oh, if we speak up, anti-Semitism is gonna get worse somehow. That's never worked out. We have to speak up. We have to protest as loudly as other minority groups do.
So with you having a daughter who's about to go to college or in college, what are your thoughts on the professors and university leaders who are not only not protecting the Jewish students, but perpetuating anti-Semitism? What are your thoughts on that? And what advice do you have for our Jewish students in these universities?
So I think, you know, she's applying to schools right now. And I went to Columbia University and I was like, you know, we came here at Ellie, we had no connections, no legacy, nothing. And I went to Columbia and I'm like, yes, I have legacy to pass on to my daughter. And she's not even applying there. I'm like, no. She's the type of person where she's like, no, I want to go and I want to like speak up and I want to advocate and I want to like do all this stuff. And I'm like, great, then they should pay me tuition. Like, I'm paying tuition so they can teach you something, not so you can go clean up their, you know, dirty work. So for me, I don't want her to go to a place like Harvard, like Columbia, where it's so infested. And I knew Columbia was infested 10 years ago. That's when I stopped donating. I kept telling them, you have a problem. You have an anti-Semitic. They're like, no, look at what we're doing with Israeli students. And we have this exchange. And they kind of wouldn't admit it. And look at where they're at now. But I feel like their faculty is probably 50% or more just brain rot. And so if they really wanted to clean up their campus, they wouldn't have enough professors to graduate students. So it's that endemic at certain schools that there's no way I'm going to send my kid to that school, much less pay tuition. Right.
Yes.
So, you know,
But it's prevalent
very,
on many campuses.
yeah, but it's very much weighing how bad it is, how strong, you know, is the Jewish community on that campus, how infested is that campus professor wise, you know, did they pass BDS in their student body? I think that's a great test. So I'm really weighing those things heavily right now. But again, there's going to be anti-Semitism, I think, on every campus.
Yes.
But I do think with the new administration coming in, they're gonna have to get better, or they're gonna get their funding pulled. So I
So
think
what do you think the students who are there right now, even local campus, like here in UCLA, they blocked the kids from getting into the library and stuff months ago, and now they're still doing it again.
have to sue. You have to sue. You have to get your phone out and video. There's, I know Fox has been super supportive. They had a student on, last night from UCLA,
Yes.
talking about his experience. And so again, we have to create a ruckus. We have to create noise, and we have to talk about it and be, wear your Magen David, be proud. Don't try to hide. Again, like I said before, hiding has never worked out for us. You need to, be vocal and loud and a proud Jew. And that's otherwise it's just going to get worse. So you think it's hard for you to do that now? Imagine what it's going to be like for your own kids.
Yeah, it's just the fear and the history of Jews that has perpetuated us from feeling like we need to keep quiet. And thanks to people like you, who are now encouraging the Jewish community to speak up. I also wanted to touch upon the current climate in Iran and also in Europe. What are your thoughts on that?
Europe, I think, is in deep, deep trouble. I think that they had this experiment of open borders. They had, I think, a population decline happening, and so maybe they opened their borders to get more people, younger people in. And I think that now they're seeing the repercussions of that, and I don't know what they're going to do, to be honest with you. I think it's really sad. I was just in London and in France over the summer, and it is not the same. And probably not places I'm gonna go back to like with my family anytime soon. Got a lot of stares for the Jewish Star, whispering, and it's not like America. Like you guys, it's so funny when people say they're like afraid in America, and I'm like, there's 22-year-olds in Israel going into war. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you're in America, there's laws here. Like, yeah, we see a lot of the anti-Semitism. We know it's gone up. We've seen, people get beat up, but it's like, again, it's not like other parts of the world where they're so brave. Here it's like, if we don't, like, now's our chance to save America. Now imagine if America goes down, where are you going to move to? Europe? Like,
Yes.
you know what I mean? So we have to fight for America because
So
America is a place that's given us so much safety.
So that's something that's in my head. Soon as the protest started here in the universities, I turned to my coworkers and said, you don't understand. It's not like, we're protesting this and that. In Iran, when the revolution was starting, it was campus protesters who started that. Of course, they had backing, and the protesters here also have backing.
And a lot of
They're
the
getting
funding came
paid.
from Iran too. They're using
Yes,
the same playbook. When the campus protests were happening at UCLA, there's so many Persians. It's like Tehran-Angeles, right? That
yes,
Westwood area. And the flashbangs were going off on campus. The older people were like, this is exactly what it sounded like during the revolution in Iran. And then we find out all of those, $500 a piece tents that they were using for their encampments, the funding came from Iran. So they're using the exact same playbook.
yes.
Using these impressionable college students to run the same playbook, and we can't let that happen. And then as far as Iran goes, I don't know. I mean, I think it's really interesting, Ellie. I think when all of the protests started happening in Iran, I didn't post for a while. And I
Mhm.
lived in Iran. I never lived in Israel. Why am I posting 8 hours a day for Israel? And then all this stuff's happening in Iran and I'm not posting at all. Why? And I had to sit with myself for a while. I think I'm really mad. When they came for the Jews, why
Mhm.
didn't you do something? When they came for the Baha'is, when they came for all of these minority groups in Iran, no one did a thing. And now you're upset that it came back to bite you in the butt. And so, it took me a while to start posting for Iran. But even now, like I ask myself, If you go ask the Iranians, yes, they want America to help them. They want Israel to help them. But really, Ellie, if you go ask an Iranian person, are you pro-Palestine or are you pro-Israel? What do you think they're going to say? That they're pro-Israel? They're pro-Jew? No, they're not. They want the Jews to help them because they're
Yes.
suffering under this regime. And that's why I was really ambivalent when it came to Iran. I knew if I was getting beat up as a Jew in Iran, would somebody come help me? They didn't before. But I know
Yeah.
if you drop me in Israel and somebody's beating me up, I know people are going to come help me because that's the mission of Israel. And so for me, that was the ambivalence, I think, of when everything was happening in Iran and everybody was like, woman life freedom. It took me a month. It took me a month, maybe a little bit more than a month to start posting for them because I was mad.
I totally understand that. I mean, even I see friends posting for Women Life Freedom, and our heart really goes out to the youth there who are being killed. But on the same tone, I have Muslim friends on social media who are not posting about the Israeli hostages who've been there over a year and the women who were taken and raped and mutilated. So it is hard balance. Going back to advocating, there are people here who've removed their mezuzahs because they're so afraid. They don't wear their Star of David out. They tell their children definitely not to wear it when they go to campus or when they're walking to go to Hillel. Be careful. Look behind you. How do you advise those people to that are thinking now today after hearing from you that, you know what, I think it's time, I want to speak up? How do they start to advocate? Like, do they do a Shabbat Shalom or what should they do?
I was just going to say, like, I think you make yourself 10% uncomfortable and then live there for a while, whatever that means for you. Live in the 10%, just a little uncomfortable. Maybe it's putting up the mezuzah. Maybe it's wearing a teeny tiny Star of David. Maybe it's wearing it on your wrist, whatever. Just make yours, and then live in that space for a little while until it becomes normal. And then push yourself 10% more. And then I've sort of been pushing myself 10%, 10%, 10% for 3-4 years now. And so that's why I'm able to be so vocal. But at the same time, I am careful. You know, I have had my concealed carry license, and I carry a gun everywhere I go. You know, we can't carry it in schools legally in California. So obviously, you want to be careful on your way to Hillel on campus. You want to follow the laws, but you also need to be smart. I'm not saying like go into a Free Palestine protest with a Star of David like this, waving an Israeli flag. I mean, you can if you have, if you're a big dude and, you have a camera on you and you're filming everybody. So if anyone approaches, you can hold them accountable. It's different when it's like for social media. I'm not saying you shouldn't like be smart, but at the same time, you need to learn how to protect yourself. So whether that's whatever that means to you, whether that means Krav Maga, whether that means, some pepper spray, whether that means whatever, taser, gun, whatever that is for you. I think all of these things are life skills. And this, trust me, this is coming from the mom that wouldn't even let my kids play video games with violence. Like, but when those, marches were happening in Beverly Hills and they were spray painting "Kill the Jews," for me, being smart with how vocal I was being meant being able to protect myself and my family. And so that's what I did. And I did have an armed guard for a while, until I was able to get my own concealed carry license. And so again, we want to be smart. You have to be a hero in every aspect. But at the same time, you do what's comfortable for you so that you feel safe. And I think a lot of the Jews in our community have been doing that. I've seen a lot of the moms go take shooting lessons. I mean, this is like totally foreign to our community, right? Like totally foreign. But I think it's a life skill. It's like learning how to drive a car. You should be able to have other skills as well.
It's baby steps, however
Baby steps, whatever. I think staying silent is the worst thing you can do. Maybe for you, 10% is inviting some people over for Shabbat dinner. I don't know, and having some conversations over dinner. Maybe that's your 10% uncomfortable. But you know, kind of you gauge you don't have to be a hero. But again, I think it is important to come out as a Jew and to come out as a Zionist and to normalize having those conversations.
So I'm just going to get to some of our audience questions. They are more related towards you, your career. As you know, in Israel, we advocate for women. We have legal aid bureaus. We have people in the Knesset that we work with when they're blocked in their career or in their path in the army. How was it for you being an Iranian Jewish immigrant and trying to get into colleges, going to medical school, then trying to advance your career? And people are asking, how did you parlay yourself from just being a doctor in the office to then having your videos and then getting on Netflix? So they want to hear a little bit about that.
I think the way that you talk to yourself and the way that your parents talk to you is really important. And I think that's why like DEI and telling people because you were born a woman or because you were born brown, you are never going to make it. You're held back because the system's rigged against you. No one ever spoke to me like that. I never felt like anything was standing in my way. I didn't feel like being a woman was restrictive. I didn't think being an immigrant was restrictive. I didn't think anything was holding me back. I'm in America. I can do whatever I want. I know in Iran I can't do that. If this person doesn't give me a job, I can walk down the street and get a job at that other building. Like that's not how it was in Iran, right? Or in other countries.
Yes.
Here, even if one person doesn't give you a job, you just walk down, somebody else will give you a job. So it was just like for me, the opportunities were endless and it was only limited by my own thinking and by my own laziness or procrastination. So for any of the young people listening, nothing is holding you back in America. Everything they say is just to keep you stupid, to keep you weak and dependent. Nothing is holding you back here. You go aim for the stars, say yes to whatever feels right to you. Every opportunity exists and you just go get it, reach for the stars. So for me, it was like, even when I was one of the first plastic surgeons on social media, my colleagues were making fun of me. I went to business school. I understand marketing. Instagram is a visual platform. I'm going to do what I know is going to work. And then sure enough, 6 years later, hey, Dr. Nazarian, can you come teach us how you did that? Meanwhile, it's that person that I know was talking bad things behind my back. So again, it's about conviction in yourself. And it's about knowing that you're a good person. It's about listening only to people who want to see you succeed. It's about only caring about the opinion of people who you know love you. And not giving a crap about what anybody else says and just doing what you know is right and is gonna, baby step you towards the goal that you might be baby stepping like this.
Yes.
But every little small decision that you're making is eventually leading you to the place you want to be in 10 years or in 5 years. So again, I knew I was smart. I definitely went through the imposter syndrome. I went through wanting everyone to love me and tell me what a good person I was and caring about other people's opinions. But you guys, when you live like that, you're not living for yourself. You're living for the opinion of other people. You're living for other people. You are not living for yourself. So at some point, you just have to say, you know what? I'm going to live for myself. I don't care how many likes that is. I don't care who likes me or doesn't like me. I don't care who falls in and out of my life. I don't care which patient doesn't come back to see me. I'm going to live my life in accordance to my values. And I'm going to feel really good about that. And whoever wants to be a part of that can be a part of it. And whoever doesn't want to be a part of it doesn't have to be a part of it. So again, I think it's about maybe reaching 40 and sort of accomplishing all the things you set out to do. And at some point being like, okay, I'm a plastic surgeon. I did that. I've done 1,000 breast augmentations. I've done 1,000 tummy tucks. That thrill is gone. I'm happy I'm helping people, but there's got to be more. There's got to be more that I could do. I can make a bigger impact. So that was kind of the show first. Okay, now I'm teaching what plastic surgery is and I'm elevating my field to the world. And I'm taking away that stigma that it's superficial and that it's not necessary and that, it doesn't create anything beyond the superficial. So kind of did that with the show. And then I was like, okay, now I have a platform. Then when the Israel stuff came up, I was like, this is for my people. This is the survival of my people. And I have the platform. I have that gift. I'm going to take it to the next level. And then it sort of just snowballed from there. Because when you're living your purpose and when you're living, you feel like the purpose you were put on this earth is what you're fulfilling. And it's the most meaningful. You feel God's hand at your back. And it's just, that's wealth. That's richness. And I want that for everybody. But the only way you're going to get there is if you step outside of your comfort zone and you do what feels right to your own core values. It's the most amazing feeling. So I recommend that highly, even though it's really scary.
Thank you. I mean, truly, you've been very inspirational to us on many points tonight. I really appreciate you taking time out of your very busy schedule to join us tonight. And I want to thank all our viewers for joining us tonight. Again, please look at the chat. You can see Dr. Nazarian's Instagram, so you can follow her, and be sure to follow Namat as well. And go on our website again, namat.org, so you don't miss any other future programming that you might find interesting. And please reach out if you want to join one of our chapters. There might be one in your neck of the woods. We actually have, because Dr. Nazarian's Iranian, we actually have 2 Persian chapters here in LA that get together and have a great time. And we appreciate all our volunteers who support NAMAD, our members and our donors, and we hope to see you next time. Have a good night, everybody. Thank you again.